Okay, so I've got a basic layout here that's going to give me a good indication where I need to add some ceilings. And so I'm just going to change a couple of the walls though, maybe if you haven't done very much of this. This section here, I'm hopeful is going to be able to work as a light well. So we haven't got a whole lot of natural lighting. Even though it's an art gallery, it's still nice to have some natural lighting. And so I want to change these to a curtain wall. So that's a really good option if you haven't looked at the different wall options that you have in Revit. You have all of these basic walls, which essentially are solid walls. So you've got brick walls and brick veneer and other different kinds of solid walls, stud walls as well. But then below that you have these two pre-made curtain walls. The curtain wall 6mm thick glazing is just plain glass. If you've used it before, you would have seen the corners conjoin in what seems like an unusual way, but that's just to do with the way the framing is done. So the other option, storefront, has the framing built in. Now the corners still there, need to be changed, but it looks better than it did before. So that's reasonable, and you can see there the wall joins where it connects to the solid wall, working pretty well. So when you have that basic setup with your walls, so all of the main walls you'd want to have done, you don't need every internal partition done, but all of those main walls, especially the external walls, you'd want to have set up before you go and start putting in your ceilings. So now I'm going to go to the, so I just wanted to point out as well before I do the ceilings, the curved walls that I've got there, just remember that you can draw any wall shape you can see there in the draw panel when you're making a wall, and notice you don't have the option of drawing a spline curve there. You can only draw arc segments with the wall tool. So again, if you want to have a spline based curve, you can do it in Revit, you just need to use a different tool. So remember before we've looked a lot at using model in place, so you've always got that option. You can set the category to walls, and then when you make an extrusion, you can draw the more complex curves that you get using splines. So if you want to make more fluid curves, you can do that, but remember they're difficult to work with and difficult to build as well. Builders generally can't set those curves out easily, and you should be able to achieve most of the curves you want just using an arc. So again, try to get your main walls in before you go too far with the ceilings, but you'll need to put the ceilings in before you can put lights in. And so I'm going to start on the basement level, where we've got this fairly enclosed space. So the ceiling tool, you'll see again, it's just on the architecture panel. You can go to ceiling, and you've got two options there: automatic ceiling and sketch ceiling. Automatic ceiling is actually a really useful option, but I'm going to recommend that you use sketch ceiling to begin with, just to get used to using the ceiling tool. And with sketch ceiling, it's like making a floor. You need to create the shape first in plan, and pick walls there can be a good option. So with pick walls, you can choose the inside face of any wall. Notice I've left the walls on the right because I know that I have a floor here that finishes along this edge. So I'm going to go and have a look in my ground floor plan, and I can see then the floor where the ceiling should finish. Another option is to go to the basement ceiling plan, and then it's even clearer because I can see the floor from underneath. And I'm not sure if you've drawn reflective ceiling plans yet in other subjects, but if you haven't, this is a reflected ceiling plan, And all ceiling plans in Revit are reflected ceiling plans, which means that you're looking up towards your ceiling, but it's projected in the same way as a normal floor plan, which is actually much easier to work with than a non-reflected ceiling plan. So here again, I'll use pick walls to pick the edge of this curved wall, or both of them actually. And now I want to follow the edge of my floor, so I'm going to go to pick lines and then choose the floor using that tool. Pick walls won't work there obviously because it's not a wall that I'm picking. And now to make that into a closed shape, I can use trim to corner and join those lines together. So that's now the closed shape of my ceiling. And I'm going to leave the height there at the default setting, which is 2600 from the level below. So I'm going to finish that ceiling. And now I've got a section view, you can see, which cuts right through that ceiling. So if you don't have one like mine, you can always draw in a new section on the quick access toolbar at the top. You'll see you've got the section tool, and it's a simple thing to draw a section that will go through. I'm going to do mine going the other way. So if you're not already making your own sections, you should be doing that, and they're a very useful view for lots of things. So now I can go to either section view, and I can see then my ceiling set to the height that I had in properties, 2600 from the basement level. And so then I know that my basement is 3400 from the ground floor, and my floor thickness is 200. Okay, so I want this to be 3200. That's the existing height of the ceiling. So I can just select that ceiling and then type in the height there from the basement level, 3200. And it's brought that up to the, to that height, but then it's going to intersect with the floor, which I don't really want to happen. So I'm going to go to the floor now and go again to edit type, duplicate and make it a new floor thickness. So I'm going to make that generic 100 mil, which will be too narrow for the floor structure, but I'm going to add more to the ceiling. So I'm just going to make it 100 for now. I'm really doing this for the lighting, so I'm going to change that ceiling now. Again, edit type, duplicate, and we'll make it plain 100 mil. And I'll edit the structure there, and I'll change the thickness of the lining to 10, and then the structure to 90. So that'll add up to 100. And so now it'll touch the floor. So it's not really correct structurally, but that doesn't matter because I can then just use join and join the ceiling and the floor together, and it reads as one element. And then I can join the wall and the ceiling together as well. Let's do that again. And that'll again make all of that read as one structural element. And the reason I've done it that way is because the lighting needs to have room, if I want to have recessed lighting, to project through that ceiling. So I'm then going to go back to my basement floor plan, my basement ceiling plan, really important, it's a ceiling plan. And then using component, place a component, not model in place. So I can always just click on the component button, which is the same as place a component. Load family, and then in the lighting folder, architectural internal, we have downlight recessed cam. Okay, so then I can place those lights, and you can see that they're going into the ceiling. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the section view, and there I can't see the light because it's behind my section line, But if I go to wireframe, then I can show you the light, and you can see it's just got enough room to go, just because I know how this light works, it goes into the floor, which isn't a problem, but the light source I know from experience is just there, and it can't go into the floor if you want the light to illuminate your scene. So you need to have the light source only within the ceiling, and that's why I made the ceiling in that way. Okay, so you can see there the ceiling thickness is to there, and the light source is just below it. So a good way to test that now is to go into the basement level and make a quick camera view. Which I'll do. So I can see the lights there, and then if I go to just render that on low quality with interior artificial only, I should see clearly that the lights are doing something. Okay, they're doing something. It might not look like they're doing enough, but that's okay. As long as you can see something, you can increase the brightness using the exposure, and I can see very clearly there that they're illuminating the scene. So that means the ceiling is set up properly, and I can go back now and keep adding lights and be confident that they're going to do what I want them to. So back into my perspective view, and I can keep rendering away. And again, get a good clear idea what's happening with the lighting. On the level above, again, I can go to the ground floor ceiling plan, and then here I just wanted to show you, if you're going to have a room like this that's enclosed, then you should do that with a separate ceiling. So using the ceiling tool, their automatic ceiling will actually work pretty well. So that red line you can see that comes up is showing you the outline of the ceiling it'll make automatically. So I'll click there, and it will make a ceiling. Oh, because it can drop in inside the walls. Yeah. But then where you have a gap in your walls, as I do there, it's better to create the ceiling through that that divide in the walls. So again, I could use automatic ceiling there. If it's working, then by all means give it a go. But if it doesn't work for you, you can always go to sketch ceiling, and then again using a combination of pick walls and sketch. It's okay if you just go over the top of walls like this. You can go. Now with curtain walls, it's a bit tricky. It'll only let you pick the centre line. So it's often better there to not use pick walls. So I'll join the rest together just using trim. Okay, so they're all joined, but now for the curtain walls, I really want the ceiling to finish flush with the frame there. So we're going to use pick lines instead and pick the edge of the frame. So always remember, pick walls and pick lines can seem similar, but they obviously have differences. And so then again, I can just use trim to join those lines together. Don't worry about the corners there, because you use a different mullion on the corners, and that will take it to that corner of the ceiling. You can do those with your walls, but there's another tool for those. I'll just show you that. I'll finish this, and so it's under walls you've got wall sweeps for cornices and skirtings, basically. Yep. And so then with the section, I can see that ceiling, and if you don't have any more levels in your space, then you could set the ceiling to be essentially at the height of level 1. And so now I can just select my ceiling, and then in properties change it to level 1 and set the height from level to 0. So it sits exactly on that level. So that's working well for the ceiling, and I can then easily adjust the height of the ceiling by changing that level. say to 3500. Now the problem then is when I go to the ceiling plan, it's hard to tell, but I can't see the ceiling. I know from experience, but you can't really tell by looking unless you maybe look at an area like this where we know we should see the corner of the ceiling there. So we know we can't see the ceiling, and we need to see it to place lighting in the ceiling. So if I go to component now, I have my lights still loaded. Notice it's not going to let me place any lights because in this view it can't see the ceiling either. Revit, I mean. So to make the ceiling visible, you need to adjust the view range sometimes, and that's a common option with ceiling plans. Just scroll down to the bottom in your view properties and you'll see view range. Edit there, and you can change the top there. You can either adjust the settings to bring it up high enough, but with a project like this it's often simpler just to set it to unlimited. So viewing infinitely instead of stopping at a certain level. So I'll set the top to unlimited, and you have to set the view depth to be at least as high as your top, so I'll set that to unlimited as well. So now, if we look at those corners, you can see then there's the edge of my ceiling. And it can be hard to pick up the ceiling when it doesn't have a pattern. So another good trick there is to set a grid. You have these pre-made ceilings that have built-in ceiling tiles, just to see it while you're trying to set it up. No one likes ceiling tiles, so you'll often just do that as a setting up stage and then turn them off afterwards just by setting it back to a plain ceiling. There are some nice ceiling tiles actually, but your typical foam office ceiling tiles are pretty awful, so unless you're using the nice designer tiles, generally something to avoid. But again here, if I go to place component now, with any of the lights I can use recessed lights, but I'll just show you as well. If you go to load family, you of course have the other lights in that that folder, which are a good starting point, but remember the library that I have set up for you on the P drive, there are a couple of lighting folders there, lighting and lighting fixtures. So in this one here you can see a lot more lights, and again within all of these other folders we have even more. Okay, so you don't have you have other options than just ceiling lights, but it's important to have in most interiors at least some lights coming from your ceiling. So pendant lights as well. In a gallery space you may not have very many pendant lights depending on the design, but again just wanted to show you that they're an option. So maybe close to the entry it might make sense to have some. But again, probably in a gallery you wouldn't have too many pendant lights. Another good option though is spotlight. So again, just in the normal lighting folder you'll always have those. So downlight spot. And so these you'll see come with preset tilts. So you can set them to different angles. You can set any angle. If you go and look at the type properties, you can adjust these angles further, but those preset angles are a good starting point. So I can choose there a location. Just going to do a couple over here near the wall. But then you can't easily adjust the rotation as you place them. The best way is to have a look in your section after you've placed them, and then you can see which way that angle is has been set. Space then will let you rotate the lights, and you can see that I've flipped it so that it's rotating with the 75 degrees going towards the wall. And I'll do the other one the same way. So I'll just press space button twice. And then also we can look at things like the height of these pendant lights. Maybe just in wireframe for the others. So it's a really helpful thing to have a few perspectives set up that you can do test renders with. Oh, now there, if you had that issue, because we really did push the floor thickness to be fairly small, you could hide those or have a look at editing the family. I think in this case, editing the family might be better, so I'll just quickly show you that, because we haven't done too much of that. I did want to show you that today. So I'm going to just select them in the perspective view. Notice though you don't get many options when you select something in perspective. So you just need to switch to a different view, and then you get the option to edit family. It'll take me to that file. And then in the one of the elevation views there, I'm simply going to select the top there and delete it. We don't really need that. I'm not going to show these lights with all that detail. The extrusion there, just to be safe, I might drag down a little bit more. And oh no, sorry, that's got a constraint set. No, I'll show you how to do a new constraint. So I'm going to draw in a dimension now from the reference plane at the top there to the top of my light. And then I can select the extrusion, and I'll do it the other way. Select the arrow there and just stretch that down a little bit further. 45, that sounds good to me. And then I'll select the dimension and lock it. So I've made my changes, and now I'm going to use load into project. Remember, it is just an extrusion, that shape there, so it should be fairly easy to adjust. Loading it back in, I'll then overwrite the existing version, and you'll see then in my perspective view it's changed all of those lights. So it's important that you think about editing the families that you use, because they're very rarely going to be exactly what you want to begin with. And so now I can go and again do a test render to see if those lights are working before I go and put chrome any more in. Okay, so there we are. So I can see the lights are working both on the upper level, but also those lights from the lower level as well. And again, by adjusting the exposure, that'll become brighter. And then I can be confident about placing more lights. And that's generally the process. So the ceiling's mainly there to host your lights. And lighting, once you get to this point, is a really important thing you can analyse as you're doing your design. Because it's good to be able to present, especially for section views and maybe even plan views using the rendering techniques you've been looking at with Photoshop and InDesign. But then to really get an accurate and clear impression how your lighting is going to work in reality, it's important to be able to start looking at your lighting in 3D rather than just guesstimating it the way you do in Photoshop, which is really 2D. So have a go at putting your ceilings in, and then if you can, try and put some lights in as well.